Hello to everybody, to all the people who is attending this webinar about the impact on large families of the pandemic of COVID-19. This is a webinar to present specifically the results of an international study that ELFAC, the European Large Families Confederation, were cooperating, a research study with the Professor Anis Ben Brik at the University of Qatar, and to know how was the impact on families, on the life of families, and in the public policies on families of the pandemic of COVID-19. There were 5 continents participating in this research, 72 countries, 28 researchers, and 21 international partners. One part of these partners in Europe were the associations members of the European Large Families Confederation. We sent all this international survey to our families, and the families were answering the survey, and now we can know where the results of the answers of the families, of the large families in Europe, to know how was the impact. ELFAC was working on this topic from the beginning of the pandemic. We were collecting all the public policies that governments were improving during the pandemic, and all these policies are in this report, Measures to Support Families During COVID-19 in Europe, that it was published last month, and you can find it on our website. And also we were following the impact of the pandemic and the problems and the specific needs of large families. And we wrote this ELFAC statement on large families in Europe to ask governments to take in account the numbers of members of the families and the specific needs of these families by reason of this larger number of members. Then you know that we had several problems, for example, to buy in the supermarket many people that the strict number of people allowed to go outside home, or we had problems with the people going by car, more people than the maximum number of people allowed to drive in a car, to go in a car. Then we have this kind of problems, the problems to follow the school of your children. We have many large families said that they had almost 5, 6, or 7 different schools at home, and they were to follow all these schools with their children, and at the same time they had to work to do the remote working at home. Then it's a bit complicated. Then it's very interesting to know how this different situation impacted on the life of the families. And Dr. Anis Ben Brik was the author of this international study. Then I welcome him and thank you very much for all your work, Anis, and maybe you can welcome the people who is attending this webinar today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Raul. I would like to thank you all for attending this important event. But before that, I would like to thank the European Large Families Confederation for hosting this event and supporting this important project, and the member association of the Confederation in different countries, in Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Hungary, and many other friends and organizations who supported this event. I would like to thank parents and families who volunteered to translate and disseminate the survey. Thanks to all of you, thanks to all those partners. We collected data from 72 countries, and I will talk about that in a moment. I would like to thank our panelists and our participant today. I would like to thank Regina for her support from the day one of the project. I would like to thank also Renata Kaczmarska, the United Nations Focal Point on the Family, for her continued support, and to thank Dr. Francesco Belletti for participating in this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Anis. Then we are going now to start with the first block of this webinar, which are the introductory remarks from 2 very interesting persons. One of them is Regina Maroncelli. Regina is the the president of the European Large Families Confederation, is a mother of large families, and she lives in Bergamo, Italy. Bergamo was one of the red points in the beginning of the pandemic. Then you lived very, very close to the impact of the pandemic in the families from the very beginning in Europe. Then Regina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Raul. Thank you. All of you that are watching this broadcasting. Thank you, Professor Ben Brik, Renata, and Francesco Belletti. We are very happy to be here and talk about this important study that was made for this July, this summer, and lasted quite a lot of time because it was really a very big job. It's very important for us, this event and this research. This is the first global research that talk about and study in depth the situation of large families. As you may know, there is very little literature on these kind of families, even if this is the most traditional, maybe, family unit that is known since history. So we are very happy. We're very happy to have participated as ELFAC and given our contribution. And now we're very curious to hear the results because we think it's important at this stage to show with data, with evidence, the role and the importance of the of large families, which many people think are something of the past, but we believe to be a kind of family unit that is very fit for modernity. We will look at these data. There is a very big amount of data. So we will have to study them for ages, but it will give us the opportunity to see in numbers what we consider the resilience of families, which is a kind of trademark of our family. We are used to have changes in our lives. Every child brings with him or with her a lot of changings, but we are used to go on. So we are very. We will see what comes out. I invite everybody to ask questions and try to go in deep in these data, which are important for the future as well. Not only to see how families have coped, but what are the real needs of families, especially those bigger families, in time of crisis. And it could be the important issues for the future. So, as is often said, COVID-19 can be an opportunity if you use it as a basis of a new future, more careful and attentive to everybody's need. So thank you once more, and thank you, Raul. The floor is yours again.
Thank you very much, Regina. Really, the pandemic of COVID-19 has been a global phenomenon that not only focus in one region or one country, that very soon, very fast impact all the world. Then this is the reason we have invited to be with us Renata Kaczmarska. Renata Kaczmarska is in charge of the focal point on the families in the United Nations Department for Economic and Social Affairs. I think that from New York, maybe you can see very well this global impact of COVID-19, specifically on families. Hello, Renata, thank you to be with us.
Definitely, Raul. Thank you so much. Indeed, it's a global phenomenon, global crisis. We are all in it together. I definitely would like to say a few words about the global perspective on the.
Yes, sorry, Renata. I think the sound is a bit low. Yes, okay. Maybe it's better.
Maybe I'll hold it now.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so I would like to thank, first of all, Dr. Brik for initiating the study. for having this idea of incorporating really all the regions in responses. I'm very happy that ELFAC played such a big role in the study and disseminated the survey and gathered the results. Thank you very much for doing this. And also I noticed that you have the measures to support families publication. That's very interesting to me. I will definitely check it out. Thank you for making this publication. It's really impressive that the survey was such a global endeavor. So 72 countries participating. It's a really big achievement for the survey, and I think we can all be proud for our efforts to try to disseminate to families around the globe. Basically, I would like to, in my brief remarks, I would like to focus on some findings of the report of the Secretary General that we have recently completed. So as you know, in our work in the UN Secretariat, we advocate for family-oriented policies to reach the targets of the 2030 Development Agenda. So with COVID-19, many sustainable development goals and targets will be much harder to achieve. But to be sure, governments have employed a variety of family-oriented responses to COVID-19. And our research indicates that the main areas of their interventions were on parental leaves, on the care services, and on financial and utility supports. So some examples of good practices from a global perspective include parental or sick leaves. So they were provided to affected working parents in many European countries, such as Austria, Cyprus, France, Italy, Norway, Romania, to name a few. Care services for children of essential workers remained open in some countries, such as Australia, Canada, and the Netherlands. Additional financial support through child grants and other measures have been offered in many countries of Latin America, such as Argentina, Brazil, also in Cuba, in the Republic of Korea, in South Africa. Now, in some African countries, we had a large utility support for families. So, for example, subsidies for water and electricity bills were really essential services. So, the overall assessment of supports offered, however, points to the fact that they have been uneven. So, for instance, according to the UNDP's gender tracker, which includes over 2,500 measures with a gender perspective across 206 countries and territories, and focuses on the in the areas of violence against women and girls, support for unpaid care, and strengthening women's economic security. The gender response varied across regions and countries, with Europe leading the responses on addressing both violence and unpaid care. Overall, governments have mostly focused their gender-related responses to the pandemic on preventing or responding to violence against women, and most social protection, care, and job responses have not taken into account the needs of women and all family members. And only 1/3 of countries took action to support unpaid care, for example, or strengthen care services for children. So that's quite telling, and I think we have a lot to do in this area. So, all in all, I think the pandemic was a real warning to be better prepared and to protect the most vulnerable, to invest in healthcare, education, including better digital solutions to education, and to protect families. And I think that your focus on large families is a very useful one, because they are probably one of the most affected by the pandemic. So I hope that this event will raise awareness of these issues and really advocate for adequate response to the pandemic by governments and other stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Renata. Yes, really, we are the first interested to know specifically the results of this study on large families, because large families is a topic that we know that there is a big lack of research on the specific needs of large families, the specific reality of large families. Then I welcome Professor Anis Ben Brik, the author, the director and the manager of this international survey, to know what has been the results of this international study, maybe globally, but specifically in Europe and specifically on large families. Is it possible to know it?
Yeah, thank you very much, Raul. I shared the screen, so I hope you can see the presentation. So please bear with us because this is my first time using the StreamYard. So can you see my presentation now?
No, not now. I think you have to go to share screen, to go to the window of the application and to...
Yeah, that's what I did. So I'll go do it again, share screen, and then share screen again, and then your entire screen. Sorry, guys, please bear with us.
No?
So share.
Yes. Now is here. Perfect.
So now this is the presentation. Can you see it? Can you see the presentation?
Sorry, we are watching the platform, the broadcast platform. Maybe you have to select the PowerPoint or the presentation because you have select now the screen of the platform.
So I'll select my entire screen. Sorry, guys, again. And this is the...
No, maybe not. Yes, perfect. Now is okay.
Now you see the presentation, right?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity. So a brief description of the project, as my colleagues mentioned, this is a global project, one of the largest across the world, conducted in 72 countries across 5 continents. We managed to get a very interesting international team of academics and experts representing academia, civil society across the globe, including Raul and Regina and Renata and many other professional and experts in family, with the support of many international partners, the Division for Inclusive Social Development, in particular, Renata, and many partners in the US, in the UK. A big thank again to the European Large Family Confederation and their member association, and many partners across Africa, Middle East, Latin America, and Asia. So in total, we have 10 universities, a research center, 17 NGOs, and the UN agency. Our partner in Europe, specifically the European Large Families Confederation, and their member association in Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Croatia, our partner in Sweden and in Germany, UK, and Greece. But also I would like to thank many other partners who are not mentioned in the list of the partners in the website, who also helped with translation, with dissemination in many countries, in Estonia, in Lithuania, in Romania, in Poland, and many other countries helped voluntarily with the translation and with the data collection. Overall, as I mentioned, 72 countries has been covered, 23 in Europe, including the UK, 11 in Asia, and 10 in Latin America. We collected data using online survey, but in certain contexts we used phone interview and face-to-face interview in very specific remote area in Africa or in Asia. We use a different measure. The survey was translated into 23 languages. The survey covered many topics related to the family life. We asked questions about the mental health and well-being of parents and children, the marital relationship, parent-child relationship, child care task, the issue of motherhood and fatherhood, and unpaid work, the family environment, the relationship between family members before and during the pandemic, coping and resilience, how those parents coped with the depression, anxiety, and stress during the pandemic, and the overall satisfaction with a different member of the family. And finally, we asked parents about their needs in terms of public policies and support, but also what is unique about the survey, not only the type and the large number of partners and the different topics covered, but also we included other specific topic like lifestyle variable, disability, intergenerational solidarity, and also large family. So for this specific event, the European result of large families, as I mentioned, we cover 23. We will present only 10 countries: Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Poland, Hungary, Croatia, Sweden, and UK. So I try to have a country representing the different sub-region in Europe: North Europe, South, and continental Europe. Now, for our sample in Europe for this presentation, as you can see, we collected a large number of responses from the different countries. But for the sake of time today, I will focus only on 4 dimensions of the family life, which is mental health and well-being of large families, the resilience, how those large family coped and lived through the pandemic, and what are the level of their satisfaction, and finally, I will present the data regarding their needs in terms of policies and programs. Now, for the first dimension, which is depression, anxiety, and stress, which measure the parents' distress during the pandemic, before and during the pandemic, along 3 axes of depression, anxiety, and stress, reaction and management, specifically dysphoria, hopelessness, devaluation of life, self-depreciation, lack of interest and involvement, anhedonia, and inertia. So the overall, the result, depression is skyrocketing in parents amid pandemic across the 10 European countries. As you can see here, overall, that more than 60% of the parents surveyed in those 10 countries reported symptom of severe and extremely severe depression. So as you can see here, specifically, that countries, parents in countries like Portugal, UK, and Sweden and Hungary reported a extremely severe depression. Over than 20% of those parents surveys in those 4 countries reported an extremely severe depression. And you know that depression, if not treated, will cause a long-term effect not only on parents, but also on children and many aspects of their life. So overall, as you can see here, depression during the pandemic, it's a very challenging, I think, mental health and public issue in the 10 countries. Focusing on large family now, which, as I mentioned in the survey, we have a variable which we can use to classify the size or to identify the different size of the family. So we asked the parents to identify the number of the children, so 1 children, 2 to 3 children, and 4 to 6 children. Specifically in this presentation, I'm defining, according to the literature and some evidence, that large family are those who have 4 children and plus, but of course there are many countries that have different understanding. But even if we look to the 2 to 3 children here, you might see difference. So in this figure, which present the percentage of parents reporting symptom of severe and extremely severe depression. So as you can see in the bottom of the figure, there are 6 countries out of 10, Sweden, Poland, Italy, the UK, Spain, and Hungary. In those countries, parents reported, parents of large families reported higher level of depression than other parents. So meaning here that 6 in 10 countries in Europe, large families experiencing higher level of depression. Whereas in other countries, Portugal, Croatia, and Germany and France, parents of large family in these 4 countries reported less depression than other countries, meaning that parents of large family or family with more than 4 children in Germany, France, Croatia, Italy, and Portugal reported less stress, severe and extreme, depression than a family of 1 children or 2 to 3 children. But even again, if you look to 2 to 3 children in those countries, France, Germany, Croatia, and Portugal, you can see here that family of 2 to 3 children also reported less depression than one-child family, which is interesting result in those 4 countries. But overall, as I said, large family also in 6 countries out of 10 reported very high level of severe depression. So the mixed result here. But of course, I mean, luckily that for the first time in this survey, we can identify, and we are working on the data analysis as we speak, to identify, to provide explanation why there is a difference between countries in terms of depression, taking into account the size of the family. And now for anxiety here, very similar to the first topic, depression, the 6 parents of large family in 6 out of 10 countries also in Europe, Croatia, Spain, France, Hungary, Italy, and Portugal, experienced lower level of anxiety than other parents. So meaning here in those countries, in the lower the bottom of the figure, that parents of 4 or more children has less anxiety than children of families of 2 or 1 children. However, there are 4 countries, Germany, the UK, Sweden, and Poland. In those countries, large family experienced higher anxiety than other type of families. So again, there are mixed results here, and between countries. But overall, as you can see here, that large family in 6 out of 10 countries reported less anxiety than any other type of family. Now, when it comes to stress, another psychological dimension, that 7 out of 10 countries in Europe experiencing lower level of severe and extremely severe stress than other parents. So this is a very interesting result that's showing even in 7 out of 10 countries, Portugal, France, and Germany, and Sweden, and Italy, and Hungary, large family is still doing well during the pandemic. So experiencing less anxiety, experiencing less stress, and let's say in 4 countries also experiencing less depression. But in other countries, UK, Croatia, and Spain, as you can see here, large family in those 3 countries experienced higher stress than any other type of family. Interestingly, here is if you focus on the 2 to 3 children, in many countries, such as Portugal, France, Italy, and Sweden, and Hungary, even 2 to 3 children reported lower level of stress than one-child family. So overall, as you can see here, the one-child family suffered more than let's say 2 to 3 or larger family. So those who are facing or reported higher level of depression, anxiety, and stress are those who have only one child. Now, the second component, we look into the mental health of children, anxiety, children anxiety during the pandemics. So we asked parents to report the level of anxiety of their children in terms of health, worry to get the virus, or losing school, or missing play and activities, or missing friends and families. So overall, in the 10 countries mentioned in this presentation, overall, over 70% of children reported symptom of anxiety in the 10 countries, which is quite high percent. Of course, in the literature, we know there is association between mental health of parents and the mental health of children. But here it could be a very alarming that 70% of the children, as reported by their parents, experienced symptom of anxiety. Countries such as France, Portugal, and the UK, 15%, over 15% of the children, as reported by their parents surveyed, experienced a severe or elevated level of anxiety, and we know the long-term impact of anxiety on the well-being of children. Now, again, going back to large family, so the question is, what are the difference between children of large family and other type family? So we can see here that in 8 out of 10 countries in Europe, children of large family, those plus 4 children, reported high level of anxiety. So meaning here the children of large families are experiencing higher level of anxiety. Even if we look to the 2 to 3 children, you will notice that in those countries, Italy, Poland, Croatia, Portugal, Hungary, Spain, and Germany, that even 2 to 3 children families reported that their children experienced higher level of anxiety than other type of family. Now, family resilience. Now, after presenting the mental health, depression, anxiety, and stress, let's look to how parents are resilient, meaning to what extent they were able to adapt to change, to deal with the depression and anxiety, to cope with the stress, and to stay focused and not to get discouraged with the stress and depression and anxiety caused by the pandemic. So overall here, as you can see that parents of large families in 5 out of 10 countries in Europe reported high resilience than other parents. So meaning here that large family in 5 countries, Poland, Italy, Portugal, Spain, Hungary, are more resilient than other parents during the pandemic. So here in this figure, we reported only the percentage of parents who said that using the items of measuring the resilience, that often true or truly nearly of all the time. So overall, what we can see here, again, mixed result, but if we focus on the positive side of or the role of large family during the pandemic, we can see here large family overall in certain countries experienced less depression, less anxiety, less stress, but also large family are coping well, are more resilient than other type of family. However, in other countries, in the remaining countries, in the UK, Croatia, France, Germany, Sweden, in those countries, large family are more, let's say, emotionally vulnerable than other type of family. They are less resilient to cope with the stress, depression, anxiety of the pandemic. Even if we look at the 2 to 3 children in countries like the UK, Croatia, France, still the 2 to 3 children felt that they are less resilient with the pandemic. But again, if you look to parents in Hungary and Spain, even with the 2 to 3 children, parents reported higher resilience, higher resilience than one child family. Finally, we asked parents about their overall satisfaction in terms of their family cohesion, the flexibility within the family, the quality of the communication between the family member, not only here the spouse, but include also larger family member in the household. So as you can see here, parents of large family in 6 out of 10 countries in Europe felt less satisfied in terms of cohesion, flexibility, communication than other parents. Those families in Croatia, Portugal, France, Germany, Sweden, and Hungary reported less satisfaction with the relationship within the family. Even 2 to 3 children, parents, families also reported less satisfaction with their with the family relationship. But if you look to the UK, Italy, and Poland and Spain, again, large family in those countries experienced or reported higher satisfaction than smaller family. So if you look to the UK, for example, 4 to 6 children family are much more satisfied than the 2 to 3 children. In Italy, for example, 4 to 6 children family, again, much more satisfied than the 2 to 3 children. In Spain, for example, the 4 to 6 children, few families, of course, reported higher satisfaction than even one child family, and so on. So overall, if we can summarize, there are mixed results when it comes to large family in Europe. In some countries, most of the countries, large family reported less depression, less anxiety, less stress. Large family are more resilient in certain European countries, but also in certain out of 6 European countries, large family are more satisfied with their family member, meaning they are more cohesive. Large family are more flexible. Large family communicated well within the family. Now, let's look to their needs. We asked the parents of their support of government policies and support, what they need in terms of public policy or family policies and support. And here we identified 6 needs, or parents identified 6 needs. So the first needs across here, without looking to the difference between countries, but overall, the largest needs of large family here, we just focus only on the needs of those families of plus 4 children. So those families reported 6 needs. The largest need, or the most urgent need, leave policies, paid leave for parents for childcare, flexible working arrangement. But also, I mean, it's important to note that in the questionnaire, in this question, we added a section in addition to whether they support or strongly support or strongly disagree. We ask those parents to mention whether those policies and programs exist in their countries. Meaning here, even if these policies exist in those countries, large family strongly support additional policies, or to maintain those policies, or to improve those policies. Meaning, even if paid leave for parent for childcare exists in certain countries, large family supported those policies or supported the improvement of those policies. So as I said, Leave policies are one of the urgent and high priority for large family, specifically paid leave for parents for childcare and flexible work arrangement, including teleworking, etc. The second urgent need of large family related to remote learning. So they said we need more free and open digital tools to support remote learning. So because of the lockdown in certain countries. The third urgent need reported by large families are parenting child care, specifically parenting counseling support and supporting parents with child care needs. The fourth important need of the family, more expected financial support of large family in terms of cash for families and an employment benefit related to COVID-19. Importantly, and this is explained also the level or the impact of the pandemic on mental health of parents and children, large family reported an urgent need for mental health support, specifically mental health support program, including telephone counseling, marital counseling support, and mental health support for children and teenagers in Europe. And finally, large family reported an urgent need for elderly support, specifically financial support for elderly and access to elderly care. Now, finally, to summarize, depression, anxiety, stress are, as I said, skyrocketing in parent amid the pandemic in 10 European countries. More specifically, large families in 6 out of 10 countries in Europe experience a higher level of severe and extremely severe depression. Also, we can say that 4 in 10 countries also experience a lower level of depression. When it comes to anxiety, large family in 4 out of 10 experience it high, or 6 out of 10 countries in Europe experience a lower level of stress. Large family in 7 out of 10 countries also experience a lower level of severe stress. So overall, we can summarize here, as I said, large family are mentally better off than other type of family, experiencing less depression, less anxiety, less stress in some countries. Children of large family in 8 out of 10 countries experience a higher level of anxiety than other children, which also indicate the urgent need for mental health support for children and teenagers in Europe. When it comes to resilient, the survey shows that large family are more resilient, are cope well, or are able to live through the pandemic than any other type of family. Overall, we can say that overall 50% or 4 out of 10 countries, large family are satisfied in terms of family cohesion, flexibility, and communication between family members. And finally, there is a need for urgent support for large family in terms of leave policies, flexible or paid leave, parental and mental health support, financial assistance, and elderly support. Briefly, thank you again for Al-Faq for hosting this event. Over the last couple of weeks, we start organizing and discussing the result of Latin America and Asia. Our forthcoming events will be the European result, covering 23 European countries, covering other topics such as marital relationship, coping policies, parent-child relationship, the North American result, the African result, the Middle East, the second result of Asia, including China, and the second webinar to focus on Latin America, but also another important event we are planning in 2021, the first quarter, focus on the impact of the pandemic on refugees' families. Thank you again for your participation, and I look forward for your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Professor Anis Brik. It's very interesting, really, because the work of the policymakers and the work of the associations, we need this kind of data to do our work better and to protect better families. Then we have invited to be with us to comment these results, Professor Francesco Belletti. Professor Francesco Belletti is the director of the International Center for Family Studies in Milan, Italy. He has worked several times with the large families movement in Europe. Then we'll be happy to hear about your comments of these results, Professor Belletti. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to be with you in this very interesting presentation. These results are very interesting, and I will not go in depth about them. Professor Brik already did it, but I rather want to focus my intervention on some specific words and aspects which, in my view, deserve better attention. The first one is the dimension of cross-national analysis. Every time we have the opportunity to carefully analyze differences and similarities among the various national contexts, we learn a lot. We all are very busy in fighting our struggles in our national context, but we have different viewpoints that in the cross-national comparison that can enable us to change our old-fashioned understanding of what we directly see in our own context. People and families live very differently in different countries. They can have different priorities in values and lifestyles. They can live in very different political contexts with different social and family policies. They can have different opportunities for their autonomy, empowerment, and economic and health well-being. The present survey, thanks to a well-grounded methodology, confirms us how important can be to share information among researchers, policymakers, and any other stakeholders. As we have seen in the comments of the data, there is no easily understandable national. When I was looking for the data from Italy, in some dimension, the large families were better living, and in other one were worse. So this is important, and to understand that in every country, many different variables are on the scene. A second very important word of this work is the word impact, in my view. Families are very resilient and adaptive social actors, and we realize that although they are suffering for strong psychological stress and depression, they are really social actors active, and they have very nice and strong competencies and capabilities. But big events at macro and micro level can strongly jeopardize their well-being. We do need more impact analysis all over the world, in each country, in front of big social and economic stressors like the pandemic. We have to go through the data to understand how families could cope with the pandemic, or in front of smaller events in the daily family life, a sudden illness, the loss of work, a relational failure, the choice need to move to a different country in migration. And we especially need impact analysis on the effects of public policies in order to have timely and evidence-based evaluation about the effects of what we are doing. Sometimes we have family policies with no evaluation about them. We do not understand clearly which is the impact of support, of care services, and so on. For instance, in European Union now, in front of the pandemic economic crisis, we have a next generation EU plan, which is the recovery fund. which means that the European Union wants to stress the relevance of the new generations of young couples, of children. But we will need a constant evaluation of the real impact on young families about all the amount of money we will spend to cope with the economic crisis. The impact on family is much more relevant when or if you consider the family as an active social actor, empowered and self-resilient, building its own well-being through its own responsibilities and capabilities. I mean, family as an actor of free responsibility. On the contrary, the lack of poor quality of any impact analysis is usually related to the idea of the family as weak, sick, and passive, where the state have to do everything and the family are simply asking for support. If you want to have active families, you need more impact analysis. A third point from the data is that children make the differences. Another interesting dimension of this survey is the detailed analysis of the role that the presence of children can play in determining families' well-being. In this perspective, I found particularly interesting a sort of ambivalence. Larger families, 4 children or more, show higher adaptation and resilience, we heard, but they also show, in many countries, higher degrees of anxiety, depression, and stress. These data show that larger families, that is, those who have more children, suffered a bigger impact from the pandemic, maybe also for bearing more fear about the future, since having children bear a much heavy thinking about the future. But they could also be more adaptive. And I repeat, many differences were reported between countries. In other words, children can be a burden, a stress factor, but they can also be a bigger relational resource, because the resources of large families are not only the parents, but the children themselves. All the international literature on social capital shows that people are resources, and larger families have more resources, given a more intense internal framework of relations. They have more burdens, but they have more resources, relational resources. This result is confirmed by the results of a recent survey in Italy that my center did in collaboration with the National Association of Large Families on the importance of the horizontal education among brothers and sisters, peer-to-peer education inside families. Living with brothers and sisters proved to be a very useful support in learning pro-social and civic virtues, personal responsibility, trust, solidarity, and others. More generally, so we can say that relations make the difference. And this evidence is also confirmed by the final report that we are issuing now as the Family International Monitor, a cross-national project in which my center is involved, on family and relational poverty. And now, for closing my short intervention, some new research questions. These different scenarios call for some more research questions. It could be interesting, for instance, to analyze the relations between the family's needs reported, support for frail elderly, economic support, work and family balance, educational support, and the level of stress, resilience, and depression of the larger families in each country, where all this amount of stress is coming from. Is it also coming from a not good and a bad social and public policy? Another interesting question is related to the quality and quantity of this public direct support to families during the pandemic. Another question is related to the phase of the family life cycle. Maybe that large families have more adult parents, and a one-child family, on the other side, can be the beginning of a large family with a young couple, or can be a permanent single-child family. this could do a big difference. I would be curious to understand if it is possible from the data, if single children families are very young or are for a long-lasting choice. And the final question could be the mix between economic and relational resources in the families and the reported levels of psychological well-being, which means that maybe that this difference resources can explain the different results in the various countries. Well, as a researcher, I have to ask more questions on the research, but obviously it is not possible to have direct answers to all the possible questions. But without the results of this survey, no evidence-based answer could be possible. And so, many thanks again for this survey.
Thank you very much, Professor Belletti. Very interesting questions. We can go later with these questions and possible answers, but we don't have a lot of time. But I would like to welcome to this webinar to Elisabeth Müller. Elisabeth Müller is the president of the German Large Families Association. She was the German Association was the first in Europe to send a press release to the media to call the attention of the government and the media about the situation of large families, isn't it? Yes. Elisabeth, welcome.
I don't know if it was the first, but we had the problem of buying something in the shops, and the families were discussed if they have the right to buy as much as they need or not. Yes, I want just to thank you very much for the very interesting survey. I've just been comparing with the survey of Germany about families, and I just took two things which was very interesting in the comparison. For example, that a lot of in Germany they were looking how fathers were doing. It is always very interesting if they do more homework or not, or if there's a traditionalism with the families. And I have to say that the fathers worked a lot more in the families, and I think this might do something with the stress, that there's less stress in the families. And on the other hand, the satisfaction, this was in the study of, this was very interesting in the survey. There was told that in the large families, the satisfaction is getting less with the larger families. But in comparison to no children, the satisfaction in the families with no children were the less satisfaction. So it might be interesting to compare with no family children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elisabeth. You will stay here. I don't know if Regina Maroncelli, maybe President of ELFAC, want to add some other comments to the results of the survey.
Thank you. First of all, thank you again, Professor Brik. It was fascinating and it's really interesting. We have a lot of documents to study and to cross check and see what is the problem. I would like to stay on the mental health issue, because this is something that is very critical for large families nowadays. Large family is coping with many different opportunities and many issues in a family, so that one child hasn't family don't have. So it's more confusing, of course, it's more complicated. Being in lockdown, we add to this situation other stressful things like overcrowded houses, and the fact that maybe the internet is not enough for everybody, not device, the scala, how do you say that? The economy of scale that you usually have, and it's a good thing in a large family, in a lockdown was really put in jeopardy, especially for technical devices like computers and laptops and things like that. So we do have a specific, I think this study shows very well that larger families have specific needs, which are not taken in account. And this was also the result of the study we had in with Portugal, the Portuguese Association, which showed that no measure was made according to the number of children, nor the dependency of the children. And this is something that has to be taken in account, and our politicians should take in account anyway. As for the support, the economical support, this is an old issue we are facing all the time. Large families don't want to be vulnerable families that have to be supported economically, but it is a matter of fairness to recognize those parents that have more children, that they spend their income to support children that will be the children for everybody's pensions, everybody, doctor, nurses, and so on. So we are paying this with much of our own pocket. We could choose to buy a Ferrari, but we choose to have a child. You can say it's your choice, you're free. Yes, it is, but I think if I buy a Ferrari, I'm happy and that's it. If I have a child, I am not the only one to be happy. So I think that this has to become quite normal, not only as a principle, as a matter of fact. Last, I would like to point attention to the mental health support for the children. This is very important, and I think that taking any kind of measure, even these last for Christmas time, there has never been mentioned mental health and how people can react psychologically into the fact that they cannot get out, or they cannot meet the grandma, or going outside freely. And I think this has to be taken in account, not only for large families, of course.
Thank you very much, Regina. We have a comment from Ana Cid, from the Portuguese Association, saying we should not talk about economy of scale, but only economy of share. It's completely different. I think it's an interesting point of view. Professor Anis, we have some questions from Professor Belletti, from Elizabeth Muller, from Germany, from Regina. We don't have many time, but maybe you can give a brief comments about these questions or these comments from our invited people. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much for your comments. Now, as I mentioned, this is a very comprehensive and very large survey. So now we can answer many questions. So in this survey, now we can answer the Dr. Belletti question, because we include many variables that might explain the difference between countries, but also at the national level. Questions such as whether the socioeconomic factors affect the results in terms of education of parents, income of parents, living arrangement of parents, would also ask a question about the size of the household, whether other family member are living with the household. As you mentioned, and Dr. Belletti mentioned, maybe you have one children, but the family is caring other member of the family. We asked that question. The age of the children might have impact on the result, whether mental health or other aspects. We asked the question about the lifestyle of the parents, whether the parents are smoking or doing physical activity. We asked also a question of the health status of the family, whether that family has a chronic illness, whether they have been affected by COVID. So we can now provide a result comparing the mental health of family who has been affected by COVID and those who are not. We also asked in the questionnaire about the type of the family, whether this is a single parent family or two biological parent or stepfather, or whether even the children is raised by grandparents, by other members. We asked also a question about whether the children has a disability, and that's what make another explain the result. As you know, caring a children or more than one children with existing health condition or existing disability, that also may affect the result in terms of depression, anxiety, and health. We also asked in the survey question about the economic impact of the pandemic on the family. So we can understand now if a parent lost his job during the pandemic, that might also increase the level of anxiety and depression and stress during the family, which might affect also the level of anxiety of children. So there are many other variables which I didn't mention in this presentation because of the limit of the time, but we are working as a team as we speak on many other detailed analysis which might explain the difference, not also macro difference between countries, but also within the same countries. As I mentioned, gender has an impact, and to ask the question related to the what we call it in this survey, parents task sharing. We have one section on the survey. We asked about the parenting or childcare task sharing between father and mother or other helper before and during the pandemic. What is original and innovative in this survey that we asked the parents about their situation before the pandemic and during the pandemic. So we can now know whether fathers helped mother or but as we presented last couple of weeks in Latin America, for example, in Asia, we found that there is no difference between the role of father in childcare before and during the pandemic, meaning mothers and women still bearing all the child and paid care. So mothers and women in Asia and Latin America specifically, and I'm happy to share the result on our website, still bear all the child care task during the pandemic. So this is a very large and comprehensive survey. We try to cover as much as we can of the variables that might explain the differences. As I explained, there are socioeconomic factors that might affect the result. Lifestyle also has an impact. The size and the type and the living arrangement of the family and children also has an impact. The pandemic itself, so the pandemic has indirect impact on the mental health through economic impact, losing jobs during the pandemic of household, or being a single mom in certain context. the role of the family policies. So as Dr. Belletti said, we are able now to measure the impact or the effectiveness of the family policies, even reported by parents, on the mental health, resilience, and many aspects we covered in the survey. As I said, we covered 9 aspects in the survey, not only the mental health, we also covered parenting, fatherhood, motherhood, disability, intergenerational solidarity. We covered also parent-child relationship, the family environment. So we covered many variables, and we are able, thanks to our partner and thanks to you, Raul and Regina, and all the other partners, to provide evidence-based result on the different factors that might explain and evaluate the impact of the pandemic on family life.
Thank you very much. Shukran Jazilan, Dr. Anis van Brik, for all this excellent work, because we are starting to cover this existing gap on the research of large families. And for us, it's very important to work, to continue working in favor of this group of people. Maybe it's not very large, but I think it's very important also for the future of our society and for the well-being of our society. Then thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the people who has been participating through our channel on YouTube and our page on Facebook of this broadcast, this webinar on the impact of large families of the COVID-19. Thank you to Professor Belletti. Grazie mille. Danke schön. Thank you to Elisabeth Müller, the President of the German Large Families Association, and to Regina Maroncelli, the President of the European Large Families Confederation. And we'll meet in next webinars, in next meetings on the internet, to talk about large families, to talk about the research of large families, and to talk about the activities of the Large Families Association. Thank you very much. See you again. Goodbye.